I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce Dan Overall, who's the Executive Director of the Trico Charitable Foundation. Now, Dan will be showing us a video before he comes up, but I did want to say a few words. Trico Charitable Foundation seeks to close gaps in society by provoking innovation and building capacity in social entrepreneurship. So in Alberta, the Foundation is providing local capacity building tools and funding for nonprofit social enterprises. At a national scale, its biennial Social EnterPrize awards celebrate mature Canadian social enterprises, while its work with the J.W. McConnell Family Foundation on Recode nurtures social innovation and social entrepreneurship in Canada's post-secondary institutions. And we've been fortunate to partner with both McConnell and Trico on the Global Challenge, the Oxford Global Challenge, which I know U of C and Bow Valley have also participated in that, as well as a very special initiative called the Trico Changemakers Studio, which will be opening at MRU early next year. And I won't say much about it now. If there's time after we conclude the panel discussion, I may provide a bit more of a teaser. There were brochures out there today, so a lot of you have picked up the two-pager and had a bit of a look at that. At an international level, Trico Charitable Foundation is also host to an annual Calgary-based event coined the World of Social Entrepreneurship, which brings some of the best and brightest examples of social entrepreneurship from all across the globe right here to Calgary. Dan has asked to play a video before he comes up and introduces the panel. So before we do that, well, let's go to the video.
In history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just 'cause I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like suns and like moons, with the certainty of times, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eye, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soul's surprise. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just 'cause I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs?
Not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you.
Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave.
What immediate results do you hope to achieve?
And so,
We hope to achieve equal rights for human beings.
I'll rise. I'll rise. I'll rise.
Dan Overall, over to you.
Good evening, everybody. The Trico Charitable Foundation is absolutely thrilled to be partnering with EconoUS 2017. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. As James mentioned, I as well wish to echo both an acknowledgement and a thanks of my board being here, as well as the Social Enterprise jury, and my two staff colleagues, Brittany and Ida, who work tirelessly for the foundation and in fact are doing that tonight. Two quick announcements. We've presented this award on 4 occasions to 11 organizations, including today. In all of that, there's only been one time where we presented the award to a social enterprise that is operating out of our home city, Calgary. And that is WINS, Women in Need Society, which won in 2015. And Doris Hall and Karen Ramchuk are here today. I acknowledge you. The reason I'm mentioning this is we released their case study yesterday. And the case study is unique, not only in the fact that it's the first ever one that focuses on a Calgary-based social enterprise. It was actually prepared and authored by 3, count them, 3 local post-secondary institutions. And I'd like to acknowledge the writing teams which are here today. They come from Bow Valley College, Mount Royal University, and the University of Calgary. And the fact that you would have 3 local universities that not only want to do a study on social entrepreneurship, but are willing to cooperate about it, to me is just one more sign that not only is Calgary developing a social entrepreneurship hub, it's developing one that's pretty special. Absolutely. Announcement number 2. We had our board meeting today, and in 4 months in advance, scheduling a major event at the same day that you have a board meeting kind of makes sense because you can have the board attend and stuff like that, but it's really made for a crazy day. The plus is it leads to moments like this. I am pleased to announce that today my board authorized an investment over the next 3 years of $2.5 million dedicated to building social entrepreneurship in Canada. Yes. Now, all of this is important, don't get me wrong, but what I really want to talk to you about is that video we just played. I love that video. It gets me jazzed up and fired up every single time, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. But the real reason I wanted to share it with you today is, of course, the video itself is based on the wonderful poem of Maya Angelou, but the production actually is from the Skoll World Forum. I wanted to share it because, to me, it speaks to tonight's theme about alignment on a number of levels, but especially the hardest type of alignment of all, which is rejecting false trade-offs. I want to remind you of the video's closer, which is fault lines creating common ground. What a powerful and beautiful notion. It calls for the rejection of the new great falsehood that is the challenge of our time. And that's the idea that hatred or isolation will solve any of the problems that we're currently facing. Resisting false trade-offs is the hardest type of alignment to pull off, but each and every one of you is doing it, and I can prove it, courtesy of EconoUS. As Ethel mentioned, EconoUS defines doing business differently in part as refusing to trade off the well-being of people or the planet for profit. By doing business differently, you are rejecting a false trade-off, and helping advance our planet towards a healthier, more sustainable, more prosperous, and more equitable future. It's an extraordinary thing, and you are all to be commended for that. Unfortunately, as great as this is, and it truly is great, more is being asked of you. Doing business differently is not the end of your alignment journey. It's just the beginning. The dysfunction of false trade-offs are prolific and constant, and we must always be on guard against them if this movement is to rise to its true potential. Sadly, we still succumb to false trade-offs far too often. I see it when debates in the social sector for sure identify fault lines, but they don't lead to common ground. I see it when people say strong business models, even for not-for-profits, should never accept grants. And I see it when addressing immediate needs, such as providing food or clothing, are ridiculed as mere band-aids and dismissed out of hand for the holy grail of systems change. The social enterprises we are celebrating and learning from tonight are masters of all forms of alignment, and particularly rejecting, indeed rising above, all manner of false trade-offs. They are proof positive that these noble ideas can not only exist in the real world, they can thrive. So without further ado, let's present the 2017 Social Enterprise. Bear in mind that our two recipients today will receive $100,000 each. There'll be a case study undertaken about them, and we prepared videos on each of them, which will actually be debuted today. So if we could roll the first video, please.
Is a charity and social enterprise. We've been around since 1998, and we're collecting society's gently used furniture and housewares and matching it to families in need, usually within 72 hours, from your home to a new home. Hi, I'm Dan Kershaw, the Executive Director at Furniture Bank. In 1998, we supported only a handful of families, starting with very humble beginnings. In 2004, when we found that while lots of people wanted to help us, not everybody can move that furniture. We got the social enterprise off the ground to collect that furniture and deliver that furniture. Furniture is actually quite fundamental for all of us to be successful in life. We find there are tens of thousands of families here that they work through all the great agencies that support them, and they find when they get to the end, they get the keys to their apartment and they end up in an empty space. Without a bed to sleep on, without a dining room table to eat at, without a sofa to sit at and be with your children, none of us can be successful. And we've been supporting that noble cause of getting people dignified homes since 1998. We work with over 90 community agencies and shelters. They're the ones that are putting in the hard effort to work with each individual family. It could be an individual formerly homeless, it could be a new refugee family from any country around Canada, the world. It could be a mother and daughter who've fled abuse and are restarting their lives. For us, we work with the agencies, and the agencies know when it's time that they need a home, and it's time they make an appointment with us to come and build and handpick the items that are most important to them to create a home. Last year, it was nearly 11,000 people who got the necessary possessions to move forward their lives, to be able to go to school, to be effective families, to be a good employee. We also run a youth employment program within the charity, within the social activity that we do called Leg Up. About 2/3 of our employees have come through this program. And finally, environmentally, it's these 5 million pounds of furniture that stays out of the waste stream and gets rediverted to families in need. So we are really a people, profit, and planet organization. We still unfortunately have a significant request coming to us from both the Greater Toronto Area and across the nation. So the future for us is about scaling our impact. It's about reaching more communities and more agencies to support more people creating homes. We estimate there's over 100,000 families every year across Canada that are emerging from some form of displacement and don't have the necessary financial assets to be able to create a home. In the early 80s, there was a single food bank. Today, there are over 700. we're on a similar journey, establishing furniture banks as a necessary need, but also a way that customers who have a need to dispose of their furniture can actually know that it's going to go to a family in need or families in need, and actually allow more Canadians to move forward with their lives.
Please join me in welcoming Dan Kershaw, Executive Director of Furniture Bank, to the podium.
Well, now you all know what a furniture bank does. I often ask how many of you love your furniture? And with a show of hands, you should all be putting up your hands, right? But we started as a charity, and there was a time when that's all that was needed. But things have changed, because if I asked you all to move the furniture that's in this room, most of you would say, not me. And what we found in 2004 is, while everybody wanted us to help, they wanted the furniture to magically move from their home to a new home. And since charities aren't magical yet, we realized we had to have a social enterprise. And we started that in 2004, focused on client deliveries, thanks to the United Way in Toronto and Toronto Enterprise Fund. And we grew it slowly. And it was always this little thing on the side of the charity. It worked very well. But what we found is that what we have today in society is there's a difference between what is a house and what is a home. We live that every day at Furniture Bank because it matters. Go home tonight and don't use the mattress or the bed or the table or the dining room set. And we see agency after agency coming at a greater and greater rate. And the need socially only continues to grow. It grows across Canada. And what we saw in the last 2 or 3 years was we couldn't wait. We had, as a charity, our ability to meet the needs of the community, create employment opportunities, continue to get more significant, and that's when the organization and the charities decided to go a different way. Rather than having a social enterprise in the corner, it became front and center of the way we operate. And I'm happy to say over the last 2 years, we've doubled the number of families we've supported. We've doubled the number of trucks. We've doubled our impact. And what we found is we've done it in a way that is very uncharitable. Charities are expected to do certain things certain ways. We believe in investing in people, investing in technology, partnering with junk companies, heaven forbid. We really believe that through partnering with both customers, who at the end of the day, when they call a junk company, are really just feeling guilty that they can't get it to a furniture bank. And we find playing to that customer's need of getting rid of their furniture and passing it on in a dignified way is creating word of mouth in our community that we're actually meeting the supply of furniture within our existing building. And we're super excited to be recognized by Trico because we are going to come across Canada, whether that be through partnerships here in Calgary one day, maybe, or other organizations across Canada. For us, it's about solving an issue that is so easily solvable by matching all that great dignified furniture and matching it to all the families who need it when they need it. So to the Trico Foundation, thank you so much. Very honored.
Thanks, Ed. Can we play the next video, please?
The goal of ShoreFast is to try to help find a way to secure both cultural and economic resilience for Fogo Island, Newfoundland. Fogo Island has for 400 years been a deeply rooted fishing community, and with the cod moratorium and various natural challenges, the economic stronghold really had a shift. And what we're trying to do is trying to build a secondary leg to the economy on Fogo Island through a number of our social enterprise initiatives. Our real focus is trying to find that balance between economic means and really the social infrastructure that can support long-term, permanent establishment and growth at an acceptable rate of change. Hi, my name is Diane Hodgins. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Shorefast Foundation, and I also oversee a lot of the business operations of our social businesses that are on Fogo Island. Newfoundlanders are predisposed to a very rich, wonderful way of hospitality, and we define hospitality as the love of a stranger. The idea of having something that was a spin-off to already what was a very natural asset of the community was looking at having an inn. So the second question that came out of that exercise was then starting to look at scale. How big? And in that evaluation, one of the community members said, we need to be careful, we can only love so many people at one time. And so that was a really critical factor in deciding to limit the size of the inn to only 29 rooms, such that we have the staff from a community of 2,500, we have the staffing and enough capacity to love everybody that comes through our doors. In 2016, we had 1,500 check-ins and over 4,500 room nights at the inn. So that's bringing many, many people from all over the world to Fogo Island. And what we tried to do is integrate a number of public spaces in the inn in order to better integrate the community. We have a Fogo Island Arts Gallery, is an open public space. It's a great place for interaction, people to have exposure to contemporary art, and various other community spaces that we have within the inn, including Dr. Leslie Harris Library. These are all spaces to connect the community, connect with guests, and connect with learnings about our past and start envisioning opportunities for our future. And what we found is out of the inn sort of taking the lead, there's been a number of other supports and businesses that have evolved from the inn's operations. All of the furniture that is and all the textiles that are featured within the inn are made on Fogo Island, and many of the guests that came really wanted to take a piece of the inn home with them. So this was identified as another great opportunity, which is called our Fogo Island Shop. So what we're hoping with many of the projects that we're doing is it provides an opportunity for others to potentially take some of the pieces that we've invested with in Shorefast and sort of use as a model in some part to what they may undertake in their own community development. And I think the importance is of the specifics of that locale and of the people that are there, the culture, the history, and envisioning a path forward, and then finding an economic outlet that is suitable to the specifics there.
Please join me in welcoming Diane Hodgins, CFO of the Shorefast Foundation, to the podium.
Thank you very much. It is really, truly an honor to be here. I am not a Newfoundlander. I come from Ottawa, Ontario. I am a come from away, if people know the terminology. So I feel very honored not only to represent Newfoundland, but also to be recognized in this light. There is a great room of social entrepreneurship energy here. We feel very honored to have won this award, and thank you to Trico for recognizing everything that we're doing. I think a big part of our recognition for this award is how we do partner with community and how we do approach business differently. Every step that we have taken in growing our businesses, in thinking of whether or not a business opportunity is right for us, is by our deep engagement with the community. We have a very big board of 2,500 people who walk up to me and make it very clear if they are unhappy with the decision that we have made. And we say that a small island is a proxy for a small planet. And what we're hoping to do with many of our projects is we are trying out new ideas. We are open to new opportunities. We really view business as a tool and a means for us to try out different ways to involve in community. And because we have such a short feedback loop and the community is so open with us, it gives us a great resource for us to change course and to engage with the local place. We're very tied to the geography that we work in. Most of our decision making comes from our interactions with the community, and we have a very open dialogue. I was trying to think of a few stories of things that we've changed. We used to have orange juice at the inn, and one of our local people came and stayed for a night at the inn, and she said, you know, there's some berries just over there that'd be quite happy to be juiced if you ask them. And we've never turned orange juice since. When we opened the inn, we were in the position of opening an entirely new market in Newfoundland. We were a luxury property, and we were opening year-round, and Newfoundland was known really for the high season in the summer months. The first thing that we did was we gave away a free night at the inn to every single member of the community. And there was several reasons for that. One is if you're going to do community development and you're investing in businesses in a community, building that trust is absolutely important for them to support. So we were not only looking for employees to come, we wanted to employ the community, we also wanted them to tell us whether we got it right. And we continue to be open-minded because everything that we do is in service of community, and if we are not engaging and inviting people in from our community, and that's why our open spaces are so important, it is really our gauge of whether or not we're getting it right. I am an accountant. I like spreadsheets, columns, rows, and nice clean boxes. I came out of a 13-year career at an accounting firm. I wish that I could stand up here and give you a nice, clean, easy answer of how it all works. That's not how it works. Every day is a new challenge. What we're all undertaking is an evolution of thought in how to approach business, how to approach investment with each other. It's hard work, and I said this earlier today, if the decisions come fast and easy, they're probably the wrong decisions. So have patience, have an open mind, and like I said, I wish I could wrap it all up in a nice clean bow, but I want to thank everybody here for their continued work in trying to carve out a new path for business and in involving your communities. So thank you very much for the honor of this award.
We're now going to do the completely seamless transition to the panel discussion, so if the rest of the crew can come up and join us. Now, we have two people that you probably know a lot about on this panel, and two you may not know so much about. The two that have joined us, they're previous recipients of the Social EnterPrize, are Colin Stanfield, Executive Director of Potluck, Café and Society. Absolutely. And Matthew Smedley, Executive Director and CEO of Mission Possible. All right, Mission Possible love in the house. Very cool, very cool. We really want this to be about you and your questions and your dialogue, but I will lead off with just one question of our kind of new panel members. I love the notion of social enterprises that start off with addressing an immediate need and then evolve to system change. And both Mission Possible and Potluck have done that. Let's start with Potluck. Potluck literally started with just the goal of providing employment for people and providing them sandwiches. And then they evolved to some really cool initiatives that engage system change, which is the kitchen table and NAC. Would you mind giving us a little bit of explanation of what those two things are and an update as to how they're doing?
Sure, thank you. So kitchen tables is part of our mandate around food security. So at Potluck, we have a twofold mandate. We are looking after good food and good jobs. So on the food side, we launched kitchen tables in partnership with community in 2009. And at that point, it was because there weren't a lot of people in the neighborhood talking about what were the unique food requirements of the low-income residents, our neighbors, our staff, those who were reliant on largely a charitable food system. And they weren't having a lot of feedback into the system that was serving them. And so Downtown Eastside Kitchen Tables Project was an attempt to start to change that dialogue. And it went gangbusters. And for a number of years, we were achieving all sorts of success by being that voice for community and being that voice for food provider agencies who sometimes weren't empowered to speak up against the funders and the government agencies that were funding them. We got to a place, though, where all of a sudden the ideas that we'd come up with weren't so novel. You know, there were plenty of community kitchens, there were lots of people talking about food literacy, there were plenty of folks helping you gain greater food independence. So we had to kind of rethink what we were doing, and where Kitchen Tables has gotten to now is really looking at food as a vehicle for community economic development. So many more of our conversations now are about how is food being made, recognizing that food security is a function of income security. And so how can we make sure that we're building good jobs into the food system, creating better choice for those who are typically reliant on a food charitable system. So kitchen tables, going gangbusters, and we're really happy to be supporting so many other folks in the neighborhood and that looking at food as a tool of the economy. NAC is our latest employment initiative, and NAC is, funny, when you get in a room like this, people always sort of ask what it stands for, because they think it's an acronym, and it's not. It's NAC, as in you have a knack for something. And so with what we're doing in NAC is we're trying to recognize the massive wealth of skill and competency that exists in the downtown east side that isn't the story that you hear about all the time, but it's the story that we know because these are our neighbors, our friends, our staff. And so what we're trying to do now is to use digital badges, micro-credentials, to recognize the skills and competencies that exist in the community. And so think about Boy Scout badges, Girl Guide badges, but instead of a tent pitching badge or a sewing badge, it's a knife skills badge or a workplace communication badge. We then take those skills and we match them up against tasks that exist in the community, things that local businesses need to have done. We have individuals who are able to work for 4 hours in a week because that's as much as they feel like doing this week, or maybe there's structural barriers that prevent them from doing more, and so we're now able to say to the business community, you got things that you need done. We got folks who would kill it at getting that done for you. Let's match those two things up. And so NAC is trying to use digital badges as a boundary object to bring those things together. And again, achieving great success with later converts like my friend Matt, who liked to bug us about it at first, but now is all over it. And so we're really buoyed by how well that's doing.
Totally converted.
So that's fantastic. Matt, Mission Possible as well started off with a quote-unquote basic mission of just providing people a space who needed it, food as well. But since then, you've actually developed this employment platform that helps people transition and kind of change their lives. And it's expanded to varieties of employments, as well as like a diagnostic and volunteer opportunities that really match the needs of the individual, and they can kind of go through the system and work from volunteer to then employment, and then hopefully on to advanced high-paying employment. Can you provide an update on that system and how it's going?
Sure, yeah. So this is our 25th year at Mission Possible, and really Mission Possible started out as people loving on people in the neighborhood in the downtown east side, and really created some great space for relationships to thrive, for people to experience some healthy relationships, but also just some be treated in a dignified way, have some needs met. The evolution over the last 25 years has been pretty substantial. Today, Mission Possible looks completely different, but the way that we really are trying to love people today is through empowerment. And so we work with individuals who are on a journey to employment, and many have been suffering with mental health issues, been suffering with physical health issues, been unemployed for oftentimes a number of years. And so creating a pathway for those individuals who really want to make a change, but need that opportunity and the support, we're just trying to pave the way. But we know that it's really about them doing it for themselves. So if we can take an approach where we can walk alongside of them, they walk currently through a program that we call our Work Readiness Program. So we start out with just getting to know them, finding out what challenges they're facing, and really how we can be of assistance to them. Run them through some workshops that are really kind of surface level soft skill workshops. And then we create some entry-level employment. 2 social enterprises are currently functioning in Mission Possible. One is an exterior property cleaning company. So we do everything from litter pickup to pressure washing and building painting. So really exterior property upkeep. The other one is a bit more unique just to the neighborhood that Mission Possible operates in, and we call that MP Neighbors. So MP Neighbors has actually works with a business improvement association that's in the heart of the downtown east side, down Hastings Street, which is really one of the most complex neighborhoods in Canada. Many of the business improvement associations hire private security to kind of police their business improvement association. That doesn't work in this neighborhood. So what we've been able to do through some really innovative, two very innovative business improvement associations, is to create a safety and security community watch service that hires individuals from the neighborhood to provide that service to the neighborhood. There's cultural competency, there's ability to treat people with respect and dignity, and really build relationships that are needed in this rapidly gentrifying and complex neighborhood. So in both of those social enterprises, we are trying to empower people through employment, but really empower them to leave Mission Possible. We want to see people transition on to permanent employment, continue to thrive, and really sustainable livelihood is the goal that we're pushing people toward.
Excellent. Do we have any questions yet? No so far? Okay. All four of your organizations are absolute masters at seizing opportunities and diversifying, whether it's products or partners. Other than just this generic kind of idea of making sure the match is there, how do you approach and determine which opportunities you'll seize and which you'll kind of pass on? Diane, is it okay if we start with you?
Yep. Is this on?
I think so.
I think, so one of the key things I mentioned in the opening is really whether it's a fit for the community. So we've had a number of different business ideas, some that I've brought to the table as an outsider, and it's really trying to look at this from all angles of whether or not the partnership is going to work. You know, if anyone's been to Newfoundland, the weather is quite strong. You know, so someone had said, why don't you bring in a bunch of smart cars that are all electric and, you know, you can be off the grid. It's 140 kilometer-hour winds. In February, you cannot drive a smart car across the island. So there's a number of different things. When we look at partners, we try to look at it from all different angles. Will the community there uptake it? Will they enjoy doing these jobs? When we serve food at the inn, is it something that grows there, or is it something that just sounds fancy that someone might expect to have on the horizon? And the reason that we put it through this lens is if the community doesn't feel a tie to it, they're not going to be interested in working in that environment. They're not going to be interested in carrying a legacy of it. And everything is about creating permanence. So we look to the past, try to understand the knowledge and history there, try to find a bit of a modern context of it. But we are creating history in and of itself. So if it doesn't fit with the natural culture there and with the people there, it's not going to work for the long run, and everything that we're doing is very solutions and long-term focused.
Anybody else?
I'll speak for Furniture Bank. We're embedded in downtown Toronto, and we find we have lots of companies who, oh, furniture. We have furniture. We would love to give you furniture, but a lot of them don't appreciate that running a charity where you give the furniture away for free is not a sustainable economic model. And what we've found is when we engage corporate partners, we go into it trying to understand what's important to them. They're in for-profit, they're trying to make money, we get that. And we have to spend time educating them on what does it actually mean to partner with a charity and a social enterprise. So we work with RE/MAX, we work with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Sleep Country. Each of them in their own ways come at working with this charity differently, and flexibility is really important for us. We, in Sleep Country's case, they have their charity program and we work within their charity program. GOT-JUNK, they run their trucks on a daily profit and loss basis. So on the one hand, they say we want to help. On the other hand, they say we don't want to lose any money. So we do a lot of iteration, a lot of experimenting, and we know we're not going to get it right the first time. So, you know, being okay with failing with pilots has become sort of habitual with it at Furniture Bank.
Questions are starting to come in fast and furious. So one is, hindsight is 20/20. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started? Let's maybe lead off with Colin.
I don't know. I think we've gotten to a good place, and it's all of those failures. It's all of those challenges that have allowed us to be here. If we hadn't opened up as a cafe, we wouldn't have been in the space. We wouldn't have met all of our neighbors the same way. And sure, we were losing money, but we were creating all sorts of wonderful social capital and human capital. And if we hadn't taken on all of those meal contracts that had wonderful, sustainable, predictable revenue, not necessarily sustainable revenue, we wouldn't have been in place for another 7 years. And we wouldn't have been in the place to have the oh shit moment of losing all those contracts and realizing that catering is what we need to be doing. And so Hindsight being 2020, I don't know. We started off in the community, citizen-led. We remain citizen-led, and we've learned from each of those experiences. And it's that entrepreneurial spirit that's allowed us to overcome it. And so if we hadn't made any of those changes, I don't think we would have gained that entrepreneurial muscle. So maybe I'll think of something later on, but right now I'm just pretty happy for all those hardships that others went through because it wasn't me. So easy answer, right?
Well, two things. One, I'm pretty sure you're the first person that's sworn at the EconoUS 2017 panel.
Downtown East Side represent.
Props, although it's getting late. Number two, I think you've just killed the 2020 question, but does anybody else want to respond to anything they wish they knew back then that they know now?
Do you mean other than not getting into social entrepreneurship at all?
Whoa.
And doing something?
Whoa.
No.
So, can I answer that question? I wish I screened my panel better.
No, I mean, the reality is there's challenges that you hit all along the way, and there's not a lot of days where things are easy, but being able to celebrate along the way really makes up for the times where you do have to, shut something down, stop a program, make a big change, and those tend to, they impact people's lives, and so it's always important to do those with a lot of care. But I think, like Colin said, those challenges are, you have to evolve and to get to where you're at, and they all are part of the recipe for that.
Okay. So this one's going to be interesting because I always find it interesting to talk to social enterprises about revenue generation. What percentage of your budget is covered by revenue generation, i.e. sales, versus funding? And you can pass on the question if you wish. What percentage of your budget is covered by sales versus funding?
65%.
Well, which is the 65%? The sales?
Sales, yes.
Okay.
Last year, the Fogo Island Inn broke even last year, so 100% of operations were funded by revenue.
And maybe to up you on your answer, I believe that was in 4 years, where with hotels the standard is 7 years.
That's it. So that was in our fourth year of operations. Yeah, so that was really, there was definitely some funding in building the capital infrastructure. It is asset-based community development. So as you saw, it's a beautiful building. But on the operational front, the inn is now self-sustaining. So that's very exciting. And this year there will be some surplus, which then is going into spin off other businesses and grow our furniture business. And we're investing in fish. Furniture, you think? Yes, we have furniture. Dan, we can talk. So then to start growing the ecosystem, and also we have a very open model that a percentage of our sales price and everything that we offer, either service or product, we identify, I'm not sure if we're going to talk economic nutrition labels, but a percentage of everything that we sell, we self-identify that a contribution of that goes back towards our charitable work, back to Shorefast Foundation and the core work of what we're doing that supports all of the businesses. So we try to be very upfront and open about that. We are not just for profit. We believe that there needs to be some element of profit in order for it to be sustainable. And we've been very aggressive in trying to have the businesses come on and be self-sustaining as quickly as possible and get into that growth model so we can grow.
Anybody else want to answer the...
Sure, yeah. For Mission Possible, this was the first year that our earned revenue surpassed our raised revenue. So it's an exciting year for us. So this year we had about 55% of our revenue was earned and about 45% raised. And that 45% is really what funds the whole training operation to move people into employment. So.
Okay. Colin?
So for us, the catering company is a wholly owned and operated subsidiary. It is 100% financially self-sustaining and has been for a few years now, and we're very, very proud of that. It, in turn, is able to pay for another 30% of our charitable activities from the parent organization.
Absolutely. Do any of you find that people get weird when you talk about actually making a profit while you're doing good for the planet?
No.
Okay. One no?
Sadly, yes.
Okay, one yes. Let's keep this going. What are the other two votes?
I would say it's mixed.
Okay.
Between the two.
Yeah, I would say I think it depends on the audience. We are, like the Inn is in a for-profit company that is owned by a charity. So in the for-profit world, you're able to talk in that context. I find in this mixed space, people are more comfortable using the term surplus. Surplus seems to be a very Canadian neutral word. So I find depending on where we are, but I agree. I think it's the concept of, for myself, having some sort of a surplus is how you have sustainability.
Absolutely.
So that's why I find it very ironic then when you're talking the word profit, and that's the bad word, that you have a little bit left over. If you had used every dollar up at its absolute efficiency, then you've got the right system. But I think having something left to invest in and help to grow out, that is part of a model that continues to have permanence. If everything was stagnant and everything was flat and everything was used exactly as intended, you're going to have a boring business and it's not going to last for the long term. So, and I come from a background of the for-profit world, so for myself, I'm very comfortable. But I think it's growing.
Perfect. In regards to scaling, what next steps are you looking at to grow? Matt, you want to lead that one?
Sure, yeah. For us, the steps that we're looking at currently, and we're just in a very preliminary phase, is just looking at partnering with other organizations and some outside of where we're currently located. There's a lot of desire from other nonprofits and charities to begin to implement the social enterprise model, just because they see the impact that it has and the transformation that it makes in the community and the lives that people, of those who are employed. And so for us, looking at partnerships that make sense in areas that are ripe for social enterprise is something we are currently considering.
Colin, your situation is interesting because you're kind of locked by the size of your kitchen, but you're responding in kind of interesting ways, given that, and finding other ways to scale.
Yes and no. So on any given day, if we need more space, we call up our friends and say, do you have some stainless steel we can use? Because we don't want to say no to this client. And so we will pivot and we'll be flexible, we'll be agile, whatever word we should be using. But really at the end of the day, what we need is we need more space. And so we are absolutely constrained right now. And the challenge in Vancouver, as many of you may have heard about, is it ain't cheap to find more space. And so we have this spot where, thanks to great work from so many of our partners like Van City, who's in the room, By Social, who's in the room, City of Vancouver in the room, social procurement is taking off huge. And so we're getting calls daily from new companies that want to take us on, and we want to encourage that behavior, but we know the first time we let them down, it's going to be a problem. So we're in desperate need for new space. And so at this point, it's just looking at every opportunity and trying to find the right one.
Okay. And Dan, Furniture Bank is looking at scaling.
The same of both. We've run out of space. 26,000 square feet sounds like a lot. It isn't. We have a waiting list of another 200 agencies that want to be able to refer their clients. And so we're looking at, can we do it in Toronto? And Toronto's no cheaper than Vancouver. Or we have lots of communities who call us to say, how do you bring some part of this? So we're looking a lot about partnership. We've done a small pilot in Scarborough, which, as I figured out, takes about as much time to drive from Etobicoke to Scarborough as it does to drive to Red Deer. So we piloted that to see, could we do some of it and let the partner do the other, and it's working really well. So, we think nationally, but we don't quite know how we'll get there, but we'll do it probably through partnership.
Okay. And Diane, you're locked into, I believe, 29 rooms, right? So
that's right.
How do you guys look at scaling?
So what we're looking at scaling out is, in Canada, the tourism season, especially in Newfoundland, is June, July, August. So in our first year of operations, we were very successful in July and August. So now we're building out into our shoulder seasons. So our challenge is really trying to build a tourism market and a tourism draw into the province of Newfoundland in the shoulder seasons, and seeing it as a spring, summer, fall, and winter tourist destination. We are open year-round. We employ people year-round, which is costly. We could close our doors at the end of the high season, but that's not the model. We are providing long-term employment. So our growth is seasonality and attracting a worldwide audience to see Newfoundland as a year-round destination.
Okay. So let's start with Colin and work our way through the panel. Question here is, who inspired you? And please say someone other than somebody who's connected to your organization.
Oh, so many.
Just need one.
Yeah. My mom.
Okay.
How's that for an
Valid.
answer?
Absolutely. And again, this is at least the second time you've made it hard for anybody else to answer this question. So
good seating.
who's going to top your mom?
Sister Ann.
Okay. Whoa.
And
Okay.
also Dan Pilata.
All right.
Coming from for-profit, when I got the job, I said to my wife, I don't know how to run a charity. And I went to Google, and there was Dan Pilata explaining that actually charities don't have to behave the way they say they are, and that set us on our journey.
It's maybe the first time Sister Ann and Dan Pilata were linked. Matt?
I think for me, as a minister, you know, what's kept me, or at least initially really fueled my interest in this area was my faith. But what really gave me the passion for and the desire for the whole social entrepreneurship was my predecessor, Brian Postlethwaite.
Great leader, absolutely. He was leader at the time that Mission Possible received their social enterprise. Diane?
I grew up in Sudbury, Ontario, didn't have family in town, and when I think back to sort of the roots of how I eventually made this journey here, I grew up in a very tight neighborhood community, my street. We celebrated together, and I always felt that my community was my family. When I transplanted to Ottawa, I've also worked with all of my neighbors and friends and built a community as family. And so that was how I grew up, and when I had the opportunity then to bring that to work, that's what attracted me to come to work on Fogo Island as well. So I'd have to say those people and all those deep connections that I built with my friends and neighbors that just showed the value of what we can do together, and those partners with people that you have in your community and the ones that support you through thick and thin.
Okay. Next question is, do you rely on marketing, and if so, how? Maybe Dan will start with you.
Oh.
Dan, sorry.
Dan, sorry.
Oh, absolutely. We have to fight junk companies, downsizers, movers, and anybody else. So we use every scrappy way of doing marketing and getting through to the consumer. Until you heard about me, you probably didn't know furniture banks were a thing. So we are active in blogging events, community events, partnering with other groups. Realtors have discovered us, and they now run houseware drives on the weekends and things. So we're trying to, because once you realize, and unfortunately all of you are now stuck, now that you know once you have good dignified furniture, you have to find your local furniture bank. So we are always trying to get out there to make a pivot in people's buying decisions, because we're fighting against the curb. And people don't always necessarily want to spend money to remove that furniture.
Okay, Diane?
I think we don't have a huge marketing budget. We have not done a lot of media advertising. Our primary marketing tool really is our founder, I would say, Zita Cobb, and her message, her energy, and her passion. We do a lot of public presentations. We do a lot of face-to-face discussions and sort of talking to people about what we're doing. We believe our project is very centered around people. And the best way to communicate what we're trying to do is by having those communications with people. So it takes a lot. It's harder to hit a mass audience when you don't do a big public campaign, but I think that it can be much more targeted and you can hit the right touch points. So that's definitely how we focused. So a lot of live presentations and a lot of open dialogue with travel agents and different partners that would be interested in learning about what we do.
Okay. Colin or Matt?
Yeah, for us, we don't have a marketing budget. Word of mouth is how we've grown our social enterprise, and really delivering on jobs that will get us a referral or repeat business.
Ditto with Matt.
Okay. So I'm going to close with a question in my hand, but I'm going to have two that I'm going to ask each of you in groups of two before we get to this one, because I've been told we have about 5 minutes left. So for Diane and Dan, one key issue that social enterprises often face is the issue of measurement. I know, Diane, this morning in the panel you'd mentioned the economic nutrition label, which kind of blew up Twitter, social media. Can you maybe reiterate what you talked about with the nutrition label and how that relates to you being able to kind of measure the impact that you have?
Yep. So every product and service that we sell, I think everyone's familiar with the food nutrition labels, and it identifies what's in your food. We have, for all of our products and services, an economic nutrition label and what it does is it displays numerically where the money goes. So when you buy a product from us, we identify what percentage of the retail price goes to labor, to overhead, what percentage we maintain for the charity. And at the bottom of the label, we break down the geographic distribution of the funds. So of that labor and all of the costs, we identify how much stays in your local community, how much stays in the rest of the province, how much stays in Canada, and how much stays in the world. And we launched that program out of a series of conversations about sort of the power of individual spending. And your greatest economic impact is in what you buy, your purchasing power. Each one of us can have there can be seismic changes in patterns of business with all of us making different buying decisions. And what we found is it gets very gray as to where the money goes in the complexity of the way financials are published and who owns what, and it just gets too deep of a thought process to really find out where does the money go. So the intent was to create the label to be transparent, something that's relatable, it's easy to understand, and it identifies where the money went and how the money stays in your community. So that was sort of the evolution of it, and I think I just want to reiterate that the intent of that is for us all to just take a step back when we're making our purchasing decisions. What do we want to do with that? And every time you spend $1, it does have an impact somewhere. And how do we get more visibility into that? And I read in a recent article that transparency is the new green. We have the technological resources and the data resources to take financial information, make it more relatable, make it more understandable, and make it more comparable. We just have to find the systems to do that, and we're hoping that the economic nutrition label is a way that we can start that conversation.
Okay. Dan, you have absolutely phenomenally impressive numbers when it comes to furniture. But lately, in terms of measuring your impact, you're looking at some additional numbers. Could you, explain why you're moving away from just pure moving of furniture to the additional numbers and how that journey is going in terms of measuring your impact?
Yeah, we're counting sofas coming in and out, that's easy. But we are touching families from every social sector, and we realized to measure the impact of furnishing somebody who's emerged out of homelessness. Some funders want an ROI on that, and then we have another sector. We realized to actually do it to the perfection of some funders would kill us. So what we've started to do is, using our theory of change, starting to find creative ways to gather more qualitative information. Our touch points with our clients is only about 2 hours. A referring agency has been spending the time with the family. They come in for an hour to build their home, and our delivery drivers will deliver their home the next day. We're trying to find creative ways that we can sustain longitudinal analysis. But in the meantime, our funders and supporters and our customers, most importantly, they're giving us the gift of their furniture, and we're completing the circle by gathering impact stories and matching that in their own words with both pictures and stories about the importance of passing on these gifts. I'm a statistician as a hobby, so I will figure out a way to quantify socially the impact of providing furniture to and housewares and creating a dignified and warm home, but I know that's going to be a while. But we find our customers who their word of mouth, it makes or breaks this charity. We provide a cutting-edge service that we compete toe-to-toe with Got Junk, who is a renowned service offering. We run Net Promoter Score, which is constantly making sure that our charity is delivering on the service value. And then we're amplifying it back with our funders and our supporters to help them understand how our employment program, our workshop, our recycling, the environmental impact all weaves together. So we've got a new logic chain which we're kicking off this coming year. So hopefully we'll be able to provide an even more cohesive quantification of our impact.
Okay. In addition to measurement of impact, a common challenge that we hear about for social enterprise is transition of leadership. Now, Colin and Matt, your organizations have actually done this perfectly. Could you maybe briefly describe the journeys your organizations went through to have that kind of perfect, seamless transition of leadership? And Matt, maybe we'll start with you.
Maybe on the outside it looks perfect, but yeah, the transition was one that was unexpected for me. I've been at Mission Possible, I had been for just about 10 years, and I kind of thought my time was winding down, and wasn't intending to be the next ED. But life circumstances kind of turned in a way I wasn't expecting, and the opportunity was there. But my board had already started a process. I already told them, no, I'm not interested in the job. Go ahead, go find somebody. And so they went through a whole search process, national search, and then, part of the way into that, I said, okay, I'll throw my hat in the ring. Things have turned around a little bit, and lo and behold, here I am. And what really has made that transition possible is really through the culture that we have is one of empowerment. And so we work with people who need to be empowered, and within our staff, we need to be empowering our staff as well. And so that's part of our culture, and something that really made the transition possible for me to even move into the role. And so far, so good.
Excellent. And Colin, I understand that Potluck has transitioned from a founder through 3 other executive directors. Any advice on how you guys have been able to do that?
So I think we transitioned in moments of strength, is what we've done at Potluck. And we've transitioned at moments when the leader at the time has accomplished what they were really set out to do, and now it's time for the next wave. And so if Ken Leoche and Wendy Peterson started us as Binners Dinners and then moved us into a new location across the street so that we could become Potluck Café, they said, well, now you need somebody to run a cafe. And Liz Lougheed-Green stepped in, and she was amazing for 6 years. And she figured out what it is to run a cafe and have charitable programs, and she did fantastic at it. And then all of a sudden, we'd moved into now providing social meals, and you thought, okay, that's a little bit different. And so Heather stepped in, and Heather killed it. Heather did a fantastic job, carried us through 8 years, and lived through that swearable moment. Carried us through that, got us into the catering company. The catering company started to succeed. She incorporated the catering company and said, well, now you have your charity, you have your for-profit catering company. Who's next? And I was very fortunate to be next. And actually, now I'm leaving.
No.
I've got 10, 12 days left at Potluck, because what I needed to do was to ride out that middle period where we were living with both a charity and a for-profit company, and we figured that out, and I got to be the guy who had to live in both worlds and do a decent job of both, but not a great job of either. And so now it's time for somebody to be hired into the catering company to just lead it, and we can promote internally there, and then take on a different set of skills to run our charity, because really, we kind of thought that we birthed this for-profit catering company in 2013, and that's not what we did, because we'd been a sort of social enterprise all along. What we did was we birthed a charity, and all of us went around and go, holy smokes, we have none of the infrastructure to run a charity. And so now I get to step out of the way. We're hiring a fantastic new person to run the charity, and the catering company will continue on its upward trajectory. So it's about figuring out, knowing what that leader's there to do, and once that time has come, to get out of the way, because I think gone are the days of the 30-year ED who's just going to keep riding it out. You need that new, fresh blood.
Absolutely. So this will be our last questions. Admittedly, a bit of a curveball. I don't know if it's just because it's getting late. We'll actually start with Diane in answering and work our way through. If your social enterprise was a song, what song would it be?
Oh my gosh. Make and Break Harbor, I would say, is probably what it's going to be. That's probably the most readily sung in Newfoundland. And I think the make and break is it's the rhythm of opposites. It's the ands and not the ors, which is sort of a theme. Everything that we try to do, there's a natural offset to it, the balance of social value and community and of business. So make and break is a good analogy for all of those balancing of the two pieces constant.
Can you sing it for us?
I think Zita can.
Zita, yes. So as not being a Newfoundlander, I can sing. I know parts of it, but really, she would be the best to bring that to light.
Dan?
I'm going to invoke that pass option now. That would.
I didn't know we had one.
I'm the least musical person in the world, and I just don't know.
Okay. Matt?
Oh. I don't know. The first one that came to mind was like Staying Alive or something like that. But I think that's most people in the charity world.
Okay. And there's a reason I didn't start off with you.
Fair enough, and I might know where this question came from. And so I'll give the appropriate answer, which is Barrett's Pirateers. Go home, look it up. Fantastic. But really, if there was, thank you very much. Second choice would be Love Train.
Okay,
right?
Very nice. So before we thank our panel, could we just take a moment to savor the incredible diversity and impact these four organizations have, and they're just the tip of the iceberg. Tell me that Canada is not an absolute world leader in doing business differently. And then give it up for our great panelists and our 2017 recipients. Thank you.